Happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is Yiling Zhang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in University of Florida IFAS Extension. Welcome to the Water Wednesday. Water Wednesday is a webinar series about Florida's precious resource, water. Every Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we will live stream a 30-minute talk about Florida's water and what we can do to protect it. We host our webinar series on Zoom and broadcast to Facebook Live. We have attendees joining us all over the world. Please put into the chat box and tell us where you are watching this webinar. If you are viewing it on Facebook, please be aware of scammers. This webinar series is free. Do not click any links that are not posted by the admin. We have a theme every month. This month, we focus on clean water. Last Wednesday, we briefly reviewed the clean water policies and regulations in Florida. This Wednesday, we will switch the gear and discuss how to use water filters inside your home. Our guest speaker for today is Ms. Luanne Duncan. She is the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent in UF IFAS Extension, Sumter County. Now let's welcome Ms. Luanne.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone's doing well today. I am going to get these slides up here ready to go. And Yilin, can you let me know if that looks right to you?
It's the presenter's view.
Okay. Is that better?
Still the presenter's view.
Wow, I'm sorry.
See if you can swamp the display, like the display setting.
Did that work? It keeps switching it on mine, but it isn't working on yours?
Not yet.
Okay. I swapped it. Now worked just fine when we practiced, everybody. Hang in there with me. And I just swapped it again. No.
It's not showing on my end.
Okay. Oh, it stopped sharing. Oh my goodness. Technical difficulties, I apologize.
That's why we love technology.
You know, it was working fine at the practice. That's a good.
It looks great now.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your patience. And when we talk about water filters indoors, there is, I don't know how many people do their outdoor water, but we're really speaking about the water that we use inside our house, which is the most important water because most of it is used on our bodies, either as we drink it and consume it, or as, you know, for our baths, for our showers, for our cooking. It's being cantankerous. Okay, so I don't know what all she talked about. I'm sorry I missed last week, because when we're talking about water, there's several different things that we need to remember. Clean and safe. There are those regulations that she shared with you about what is allowed and what levels are allowed in different water. So one of the things that I want you to really think about here is that some things are acceptable at certain levels. So is it really 100% clean water? It would be classified as such. It's classified as safe. However, some people and some individuals have some sensitivities, and they need to think about that when they're having their water tested. They need to know those results and what they mean. So there are purifiers and there are filters, and sometimes they're combined and called a filter. So you can test your own home water I don't know the different tests well enough to be able to tell you, oh, let's try this one at home. But basically, you can have them tested. It is recommended annually, really, on wells. But if you have some medical circumstances, if you go to the health department website on testing, they can suggest to you when you might need to have your well tested or have your water tested. That's usually done through the health department, but there are also private labs that will test your water. And it may be required if you're looking to buy a home, certain types of home loans require this lab or a lab test and those results before you can actually make the purchase. And then there's the public water systems. And once again, they have certain levels of things that maybe you don't want in your water. And you can ask them for the information that they have and the numbers related to your water, but they do the testing themselves. So why do we use a filter? Well, those of you that may be listening to this from Florida, I'm going to jump right ahead to flavor and aroma. Some of them are used for purification to remove sediment in water, and others are just because some of our water can have a funny taste or a taste that we don't appreciate. They sometimes put off an aroma, and here she has a cup of hot tea or coffee, and it'll affect the food that you make. It can affect the flavors of all your beverages. And even if you make ice from that water, I've noticed, like, one of my first experiences in Florida years and years ago was coming to visit and going out to eat and having ice cubes added to a commercially made beverage that really changed the whole flavor of it. And so after a disaster, we need to use filters possibly, but we also may just need to purify the water. And then we'll briefly discuss fluoride. And then sometimes it's to remove softener salts, sodium in our diets, especially for people who have heart issues or chronic health problems. They need to watch the amount of sodium. And if they have a softener, they may be getting salt into their system. And so that is also related to the hardness of the water that can be affected by a filter or some types of filters. So when we talk about filters, remember that those certain amounts of bacteria and everything may be allowed. Very low levels, believe me. But if there's anything in that water that it hasn't been treated, it's not 100% bacterial free, and then that water that's sitting on a countertop, even if it's been filtered, if anything was missed at that room temperature, you can grow that when it hasn't been completely purified. So remember, if you just want to have good, fresh drinking water, it doesn't mean that you can just leave it sit there for days on end and hope that it's just still as good as when you first put it out. There are a wide variety. There's more than 10 types of filtering methods. And one that I didn't put here is like a sediment remover. But people with wells or really any kind, you can get sediment, little dark specks in your water that really might not be dangerous, but they are possibly, something that just isn't very attractive to take a drink of water and have little dark specks in there. So there's that filtering, there's reverse osmosis, distillation, using activated carbon, ultraviolet, ionization, and then there's 5 other types. And they all need to be studied and talk to a professional as to which method is best for you. Because once again, it comes down to what you want to actually happen. So you've all probably seen the pictures. There's all kinds of things, the countertop types of filters, ones that come under the counter, whole house filters. There's even shower head filters. So there's other kinds that I haven't listed here, but these are kind of the ones that we're going to focus on here for the next few minutes. So there are pros, obviously. Removing that softener salt would be a very, very helpful for some people. It might be what they're looking for. Removing those odd flavors or removing chemicals. Some of them, not all of them, will remove bacteria. And once again, there's so many types and so many different prices that you can filter your water. The reasons aren't great for not filtering your water unless you have super great water. You drink your water straight from the faucet. It doesn't smell funny to you. It tastes great. You know that it's been tested and safe. There's no reason to have one. It's just an extra expense. And when I have costs there at the very bottom, it's because some of these filtering systems can be very costly. And if it isn't necessary, it might be a cost you want to avoid. Now, I don't want to get into the fluoride thing, but I'm going to tell you a brief story. It wasn't here in Florida, but I have lived in several different states. In one state that I lived in a county where the people had voted down years ago adding fluoride to the water in that county. And the issues related to no fluoride in their water, the dental issues, had people very, very concerned. Not only the dentists, but also families with children with very, very major teeth issues. But if you have well water, you don't have fluoride. There are alternatives. But I really want to add this because when you filter your water, you may be removing some things that you need. Are there minerals in that water that are helpful to you? Too many might not be helpful, but our water does provide some minerals to our diet. Now, when we look at the cost of filters, the whole house conditioners might include the softening and the filter itself. They can go fairly high price, up to $3,000 and probably over that over time here. But the most expensive one I saw was $3,000, and I don't know if that included the installation. You can get under sink filters for anywhere from $100 to $400. The countertop filters, $50 to $450. Then these filters that just attach to your faucet that are $24 to $400. Once again, there's a very wide range. And so you really want to look into, if you're going to add this, what are the things that they can do? What will they do what you need them to do? The shower filters, the water is touching our skin. If it has an odor to it, if it's super hard, one of the things to remember there is when it's very hard water, you use extra soap wherever it is, whether it's in the shower, in the laundry room, or in the kitchen. And sometimes that extra soap will add up in time, and it's worth it to have a filter and go minimal on the amount of chemicals we have to use for cleaning. The refrigerator dispenser filters, I just put around $50. And this is when there's a water dispenser in the refrigerator. And then those filters need changed frequently. And then those pitcher filters that can range from $20 to $75. And usually that's related to the size of the filter or the pitcher itself. Some things to remember is that when you have it in your refrigerator, okay, there are replacement parts. There's an actual filter that has to be put in there and removed, and on usually a regular basis. Some of our machines will remind us when those filters have to be removed, and some of them may not. And so if they don't, it's so easy to forget. So if you end up with a filter that doesn't give you an alarm when it needs to be changed, please put it on your calendar, because some of these things are going to cause you more problems than they're going to help you. For example, tubing in ice makers and in dispensers like this in the refrigerator, you can have a problem with mold growth that has nothing to do with the filter itself. It's the fact that it hasn't been changed, and the debris can just get stuck in the tube, and as water comes, it brings those things out with it. And that isn't any more healthful to you. I did say healthful, not helpful, but it's not helpful and it's not healthy either way. to have mold or that debris coming through the tubing. So if you have a refrigerator type or any of these kinds of things, check with the manufacturers and make sure you find out if the tubing needs changed on a regular basis, if it needs flushed out on a regular basis. Sometimes you need to put like vinegar through, and then afterwards you have to run quite a bit of water to get some of that cleaned out and get the flavor out, but you don't want these other things growing in there and causing you harm. And then it takes some time maybe to figure this out, but what's really important is to know what needs to be removed. What I mean by that is what is in your water that you want taken out? Is it just the flavor? Is it just the odor? Is there some kind of sediment? Do you believe there is some bacteria in there? If it's water that's being provided to you through a water facility, you need to talk to them and find out those numbers, get your well numbers. And usually most of the people I talk to, their water really is safe. It's not the issue of whether or not it's safe. Once again, it comes down to, do they enjoy the water? We need all that water every day. And it's so important to us, especially here in Florida, to have good water, that it's important that we enjoy it. So I have a coworker who moved into a new house, and she had water provided by one service. And then now the water is coming from somewhere else. And she said it's terrible. So she's starting off with the pitchers to use them every day while she researches and finds out exactly what it is that she needs so that she, over the long run, doesn't spend money that she doesn't need to spend. And then I don't want to minimize, I just remember that when the electricity is off, when we have hurricanes, when we have storms, and of course, our most recent experience that we remember here was not that long ago in Texas, and all of their water issues that they had as a result of the weather. So if you can't use your filters and you're using it, especially to make sure that you have clean water, and if you don't have access to good, healthy water, remember that we do have information. There's a blog down here that I would like to refer you to, because it gives you the actual amounts to add of the iodine tablets, the liquid iodine. I added the chlorine. Now, when you add chlorine to water, you have to be sure that it's fairly fresh chlorine. And here this year, it's been kind of hard in this past year with the pandemic and everything to find chlorine. And you want it that it's not scented, and you want it to be as fresh as possible, because even being stored in the container, over time, chlorine dissipates or it weakens. And so you want as fresh as you can get, and you want to use, I'm sorry about the printing on there. It's 1/4 teaspoon of chlorine per gallon of water. And the whole reason behind having this is so that we can avoid having so much bottled water. We need to have our emergency kits ready, and so that we have bottled water on hand and ready to go. But so many people I've talked to, I've been shocked to hear how many people buy water, bottled water, on a daily basis. And this is, I know you know this, but think of all the waste in the number of bottles, because they don't like the taste of their water. There's a way around this. And most people that go into using a filter especially have really been glad that they did. And that's true for me, even on my shower. My water is a little bit hard, so I put a water softening type shower head on my shower, and I didn't have to spend all that money to put in a whole softening system, because for the water itself tastes great. It's wonderful water. It's just a little bit needed to use a little bit too much soap. So remember here, if there is, and I kind of skipped over, I apologize, the boil alert. Sometimes people aren't aware of that. It's just best after a disaster, especially, maybe to boil your water for a little while, especially if you didn't have access to the water during the disaster. If you have a well and you didn't have your pump was obviously turned off with no power, run the water for a while, 15 to 20 minutes, and then maybe boil it at first until you're sure. Try to find out if there's been any alerts announced in your area before you move on, because safe water is very, very important to us, because if we don't drink enough water, we're not going to be healthy. And if we drink water that isn't that good for us, we're not going to be healthy then either. So today I used several different things, as hopefully you all are aware that we have EDIS fact sheets, edis.ifas.ufl.edu. That's our electronic data information. And basically, there are so many topics available in there. There's some information on private wells, also referring you to the floridahealth.gov. If you're not from Florida and you're watching this, check with your local health department and see. It's pretty much nationwide that the state and county health departments do our water testing for us. There's always the private wells and the private sampling places, especially if you're wanting to sample something unique. If you know you have a health condition or a sensitivity that the others may not test you, there are ways to have things tested further. And then this last one, the 10 best water filters for home use, is from Consumer Reports. Years ago, University of Florida had specialists in the areas of housing and equipment, but it's dating me. We don't have those anymore. So a lot of times we do refer to some research that we feel is non-biased and hope that it is. And Consumer Reports is one that we typically refer to. And so there's it's over 20 pages online about choosing the best water filter, but all the different ways they work, what they'll do for you, and then also making those choices so that you don't spend money you don't have to. So I wish you well in using a filter, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Miss Luanne. I'm checking our Facebook. I haven't seen any comments. So for our Zoom webinar viewers, if you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. While you are typing your questions, I just want to add another link here. As Ms. Luanne mentioned, at this point, University of Florida IFAX extension doesn't have that much well or drinking water related publications. So the last link Ms. Luanne put here is from the Consumer Reports. And another source that you can try, it's called the National Sanitation Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a third party. They test water treatment systems. So they have certain standard for what they call the point of use, which is more like from the home perspective, or like what kind of system you can use and how that system meet what standard. So I encourage you to check that website and see what standard the system you're looking for has met. And there are also some other professional associations similar to National Sanitation Foundation, like AWWA, which is American Water Works Association or Water Quality Association. They are all like professional associations, non-for-profit, third-party test water systems. They can also be good resource where you can check the performance of your system. And so if you have questions, like I said, you can just put it here, because Ms. Luanne mentioned so much useful information. I feel like I need to take this opportunity also to promote a little bit, because Ms. Luanne mentioned if you're on private well, what you should do, especially mention the bacteria. So I'm posting a link here, because
You want me to stop sharing here so that?
Oh, Oh, it's all right. If
Okay.
yeah, or you can share your contact info. Either way, it's fine. I put in the chat box. It's the link for a monthly webinar series related to private wells and the septic systems. Because during Miss Luanne's talk, she mentioned hard water. What should you do? Because it's just when I was listening to that, I was like, wow, I just did a webinar yesterday. So I put a link here. If you missed that, you want to know more details, because we understand this Water Wednesday series, we only have 30 minutes. We can only touch the surface of a lot of topics. That's why we have another webinar series, provide more in-depth, more in details information related to private wells. All right, I think I've talked enough. Haven't seen any questions now. So I guess I just assume Miss Luanne has covered all your questions. She did a fantastic job. All right, so thank you everyone for attending this webinar series. And I just want to let you know, next week, we'll still focus on clean water. It's just like, you know, clean water has all the areas. We covered like policies, clean water policies. And this week we talk about specific about drinking water inside your house. And the next week we'll talk, believe it or not, we'll discuss pond. So stormwater pond, what do they do? And how can they be related to clean water? So just stay tuned, and you can find the registration information on the Facebook page or from the MREC webpage. So thank you again, Miss Luanne, and thank you everyone. So enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.